it's our last week. 7 out of 7. It doesn't take millions to be a queen. The Apartment Queen's Guide for Successful Single and Multifamily Real Estate Investing. Real Estate IQ, #1 in deal finding, 45,000 leads every month. So they're bound to help you to increase your pipeline, which is exactly how you scale a business. So if you're to the point, regardless of if it's single, multi, commercial, whatever, they have leads for all kinds of different properties. And we'll cover that at the end a little bit more in detail. So I'm going to play a little testimonial.
Hey guys, I'm here with Adam at Redneck Country Club at the Jet Landing event, and Adam has been using our system for a while. Adam, could you share with us your experience with our tool?
Yeah, so I love the tool. It's really been very useful for me as a new investor. I don't have access to the MLS, so running comps was something that was a problem. Now that I have the tool, I can run comps. It allowed me to secure my first deal, and I'm going to market with it and look to, because of the comps that I was able to run and get it for the right price, I was able to secure a deal that's probably going to profit me somewhere north of $50,000.
Oh, fantastic. And by the way, we can also help you market your deal too, Adam. Thank you so much. And guys, deal analysis suite is only $15 a month, and it's with unlimited comps all over Texas. So make sure you take advantage of this special right now. Thank you, guys.
So that is our testimonial. Awesome. And again, we'll cover in more detail at the end about exactly what you can get. So this is how I'm going to start, and I have every single week an icebreaker. What is my why? Because for me and my business, that's really why I do what I do. You know, a lot of people that get into real estate, they do it for the money, and maybe they don't do it for other reasons. But for me, yeah, money's great, cool. But at the same time, it's really important to me to put together my why, which I'll get to my why. It is basically creating independence for other people. And I focus heavily on women because I'll cover later a little bit more about the psychology of why women kind of need a little bit of a push sometimes. We don't ask. We just assume a lot of things in the way that we're brought up. I won't go into super detail today. But, you know, women have difficulty because of our entire upbringing and generations of information that we have. So it is my pleasure to be able to produce passive cash flow and cash flow period, which has created independence for me. So I want to help other individuals, especially women, do that for themselves, so they can have complete independence and be who they are and pursue the life they really want. So that's my why. And then here's me, Kaylee McMahon, the founder of the Apartment Queen. We have 731 doors, assets under management currently right now as key principal or general partner. And like I mentioned earlier, I have a passion for helping others to create independence. That is my driving thing that gets my butt out of bed every day. All right, so we're going to start with 4 shocking facts before we get into the negotiation tactics and exactly what it's going to take. So negotiating is uncomfortable to 90% of humans. If you're uncomfortable with negotiating, it's not just you. There's a lot of other people out there who are uncomfortable. That's why I said humans. Most people can't listen. That's another shocking fact, which is actually the cheapest concession that you could ever have in a negotiation. If you could listen to the other party actively, which is such a hard skill, you actually can sometimes, or most of the time, instead of costing you more money, because sometimes that's the bottom line, you can actually make other concessions by just listening and letting the person really get to their true needs. Old school ways of intimidation do not work. Sorry, bonding does. So I've experienced this myself in multifamily in negotiating with a broker on price, et cetera. And, you know, he was younger, which was surprising. So he tried to use old school tactics of, you know, calling me names and intimidating me, like, you know, as if this isn't going to happen and you're going to fall out of contract and all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever, it doesn't affect me. So, but if he were to instead bond with me and try to understand what I needed, I would have been more likely to concede. No is not negative. So there's a book called Getting to Yes, and we're not going to cover that in this book, but basically we're going to talk about the no. So getting to yes is trying to get, it's a system actually the FBI used to use, getting your counterpart to get to yes. But actually where I'm going to cover is no is actually your optimal word. No is not the end. It's actually the opportunity to get the other party to clarify what they really want. So you kind of have to think backwards a little bit. This is going to be a little verbose. So again, if y'all want the slides, please ask for them at the end, or, admin@theapartmentqueen.com. I'm happy to get them to you. And then also we have a real estate IQ group, apartment investors, and we'll also have this in there if you request it. So here we go. All right, so starting off with negotiations, like I mentioned earlier, new rules are what we need to think about. People want to be understood and accepted. No matter what negative things they're saying, no matter what behaviors they're displaying, listening, like I mentioned earlier, is the cheapest yet most effective concession that we can do or use to get there. By listening intensely, you demonstrate empathy, and you show sincere desire to better understand what the other side is experiencing. And even if you don't care, if you can just demonstrate this, you'll get so far. So we're going to start with some new rules. So how do you do that? How? Active listening, like I mentioned earlier. So as the active listener, you can't come into a negotiation with your hypothesis on exactly what the other person wants. You need to have several hypotheses and be flexible, because you're going to get surprises. You need to be ready for surprises. The best negotiators are the ones that, like I said, have several different hypotheses, and then they use the other party's shared information to narrow down exactly where they need to target or to focus on. So it's going to always be in flex or flow while you're negotiating. Negotiation, again, is not an act of battle. It's discovery. That's as simple as it is. So for example, I negotiate with people all the time and they hate me for it, which is just kind of mind blowing, but it's just because they're so uncomfortable doing it on their end. And it's literally just about discovering the information that you need to make a decision, whether it's you or the other party making a decision. You need to quiet the voices in your head and make your encompassing focus to basically focus on what the other person has to say. Your goal is to identify your counterpart's needs and make them feel safe. Make them feel safe to talk about what they want. Negotiation begins with listening, making it about the other party. Again, this is key, validating their emotions. So even you can say out loud, and we'll come into labels next, but you'll say out loud the emotions that you see, and you're validating that that you understand that they have those emotions. And when you go through an ethos appeal or an emotional appeal, emotions actually will control somebody's behaviors way more than facts will, or money will, and other things. So that's kind of a non-material or non-monetary thing that controls negotiations, is emotions. So you need to, like I said, create enough trust and safety for a real conversation to begin. Again, going too fast is one of the worst mistakes that all negotiators make. I've done it before, for sure. Being in a hurry, people will feel as they're not being heard, and you risk undermining the rapport and trust that you built. So, for example, I don't know if I go into this later, but I'll tell you that there's so many different ways that you can do this to slow down. If you feel like you feel pressure to hurry up, give them an answer, they're gaslighting you, whatever it is, I always take the initiative to slow it down. So when it's in a commercial negotiation, like I mentioned earlier, that the contract, you can structure it whatever way you want to. There's no standard TREC forms. There's no standard way to negotiate. There's no standard option fee. Everything is just creative to meet everyone's needs. So negotiating is key. Well, so if I wanted to slow it down, how I do that is you can go to the bathroom, you can get something to eat, you can take a break. So meaning if something's getting too heated, I always will tell a broker, for example, because I negotiate with them the most, or a seller, you know what, I need to sleep on it. I'll get back to you tomorrow. I will send you an email. Or if it's the weekend, it's even better, because then you can take 2 days and say, well, I'll get back to you on Monday. No one's going to die if you make them wait. So active listening is so key to the first step to a negotiation. You have to get the other person, the other party, to open up. And then when you get to talk, your time to talk is going to be mirroring and labeling. So the next step is mirroring when it comes to you talking. Now, there are 3 effective voices when you are speaking as a negotiator. There's the late night FM DJ voice. And what it does is you can use it to selectively make a point. You inflect your voice downwards and you keep it calm and slow. When that's done properly, what that gives the other party is a feeling of your authority and trustworthiness. Really interesting, and it doesn't trigger defensiveness. So I'll always do that. My voice right now is very much the second voice, the positive, playful voice, because I want to keep you interested. I want to keep you listening. But the thing is, in a negotiation, a positive, playful voice will actually, depending on when you're using it in the negotiation, will usually elicit a response from the other side. So think if I'm talking like this, there, you don't want to say anything back. But if I'm having a playful voice and I'm really excited about what I'm talking about, that really usually makes someone want to interject or speak. And what you want to do is you've let the person on the other end speak so much that now when you finally get your turn, you need to do it correctly, and it should be you get the floor. You also have the ability to use the direct or assertive voice. Now, that is not appropriate when you're in the beginning stages of negotiation. You want to get from listening to mirroring to labeling, and then whenever you're past labeling and you're into maybe a haggle, we'll cover that later, the assertive voice is good to say things where if they offer something and they won't stop to think about another solution, we don't do that. Like something just very assertive. And it's, not name calling, not yelling, nothing like that. But if you use that in the beginning, you're not going to get anywhere, and it may actually turn on you. Putting a smile on your face, like I mentioned, so we start with active listening and rapport building, and then mirroring. Mirroring, there's like the physical version of mirroring where you're actually mirroring the person's body behavior or body language. So if the person across from you puts their hand out, you put your hand out. If they're sitting like this, you're sitting like this. So you're basically copying what they do. Not every single thing they do, but in general, and very slowly, you're just kind of doing it. And actually, if the conversation's going well, your body will just do it automatically. You don't even notice it. But if it's not going well and you want to control the situation, the way to do it automatically is, again, mirror their behavior. So mirroring, when it comes to speaking, though, you can do it with body language first with putting a smile on your face. Whenever you start with a smile on your face, even if it's uncomfortable, it will put the other party at a positive frame of mind. And actually, they will be able to think quickly and are most likely to collaborate and problem solve on their own accord. And positivity creates mental agility for both people. Whenever there's negativity, usually people want to tap out. Now, again, you can be very direct and to the point as long as you create safety by the tone of voice that says, I'm okay, you're okay, let's figure things out. And I say things like that all the time. View assumptions as a hypothesis and use your negotiation, these processes, to test your hypotheses. So you're now talking, you've got your 3 tones of voice. Mirrors are the next thing that work magic. Mirrors are you're repeating the 3 words or the critical 3 words that someone has just said. Why? Why? Because if you're in a negotiation, you continue to say something that's different than what the other person said. What is different in the human brain? Actually, we are drawn to what is similar and drawn away or have fear of what is different. So if you continue to insinuate similarity, that facilitates like false bonding, basically, but it feels like bonding to the other party. By repeating back what they say, your counterpart will inevitably elaborate. And so it's really funny. Like, for example, I'll give you an example right here. So if somebody said they're confronting you and they say, I think you're wrong about the sky being blue. You're like, the sky being blue? And what's interesting is, I don't know what that just did to your head, but what it does do is it makes the other party think, yeah, that's what I said, but they're not going to say that. What they'll do is they'll re-clarify what they said. So they'll say, well, the sky, is blue, but not every day. But, like they'll kind of scramble to reevaluate what they said, because essentially mirroring makes the person feel like you're similar to them, but also it's a question mark at the end. So you'll say the late night DJ voice, I'm sorry, the sky is blue. And you say it with a question mark. So again, they feel the propensity and the need to reclassify and reclarify what they're saying. So basically, if you're going to keep repeating that with every new thing that they say, what you're going to do is you're going to lead them in the direction of where your hypothesis is going, or lead them in the direction of like a calm solution and not blaming, and because they're going to feel connected to you, bonded and similar. So mirrors are magic. It's really weird and it's really uncomfortable at first, but it's great to practice. Like if you're watching Telemundo, or if you're watching someone else speak and you want to practice, I'm going to practice it on someone tonight. Then, like I mentioned, labeling. Labeling again is another thing that's your next stage. So you're similar, you're listening, you're similar, and now you're to labeling. And so this is your opportunity again to speak. But when you're speaking about labels, this is basically taking the negative emotion that you kind of already think whether you're right or whether you're wrong, it doesn't matter. So for example, if the other party, for example, is accusing you of something, and they probably already did, And then maybe you know that there's always an underlying emotion to what they're accusing you of. For example, you might have a grumpy grandpa at a birthday party, and where actually the real underlying emotion that he's feeling is the fact that he's alone, and because he's alone, he creates on the surface that he looks grumpy. So you want to label the emotion that is below the surface reaction that you're seeing. So labeling, and then you're going to do it in a sense like this, where it's you're saying it out loud. So, it seems like in this situation, it seems like or sounds like or looks like you're lonely. And that basically what that does is labeling it out loud. And because it's out loud, somebody, when it's said out loud, sometimes thinks that it's ridiculous or that it's too much, or sometimes you're spot on. But regardless, if they pull back and say that that's not it, and you're saying, well, I didn't say it was that, it just seems like that, but the great thing about that is what it does is it de-escalates immediately. I know that sounds weird, and this is really uncomfortable sometimes to practice, but the more you practice it, the better you get at labeling somebody's either behavior or really the underlying emotion is what it is. So if they attack with negativity, they freak out or whatever, again, observe it without reaction, without judgment, and consciously in your head, label each negative feeling and replace it with a positive, compassionate, and solution-based thoughts. And they may tell you something while they're freaking out that you can use, but the point is labeling, again, is to discover the emotional state below the surface of their reactions. And a lot of the times these words will pull it out. Sometimes they'll even tell you what they're feeling if you can't figure it out. So again, labeling is really key. It sounds like you're insecure about me operating this, or, so, and then if they freak out, you're like, well, it just seems like that. I'm not saying it was that, but you can continue to mirror and label back and forth until you can kind of get down to the root cause. So after labeling, you may get a no. But again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the session, that no is the beginning. So for good negotiators, no provides a great opportunity for you and the other party to clarify what you really want by eliminating what you don't want. So you're like, what does that even mean? So like this, for example, no may mean I'm not yet ready to agree. You're making me feel uncomfortable. I don't understand. I don't think I can afford it. I want something else. I need more information. And a lot of the times this is where women get stuck, because a lot of the times women don't ask, and you must ask these things. And also when women are usually in negotiations, when they get that first no or that first pushback, they either tap out or they just concede and give everything. And so that's one of the things, and I won't go too much into detail when it comes to negotiation between men and women, or women and women, doesn't matter, that women will do. So it's really important that when there's a no, you recognize that is not that it's a bad thing. It just means that there's something that the other party either isn't on board with, doesn't understand, needs reclarification, etc. So if they say no, then something quick and easy that's solution-based. Well, what about this doesn't work for you? What would you need to make it work? It seems like there's something here that bothers you. So again, you're prompting them to talk. You're doing an open-ended, what we call calibrated question, where you're not getting a yes or no answer. If you're asking anything, it's like, is this how this works? Yes, no. That's like the opposite of exactly what you ever want to say. So if there's a no, what would work for you? What am I not understanding, etc. So then they have to, again, expand on that. So no is the beginning, and pushback is not bad. Also, another way, you got to learn how to say no without saying no on your end. So for example, sometimes the only way, if they're not helping you to understand what the real root cause of their issue is, the only way to get them to listen and engage with you is by forcing them into a no. So like this. That means intentionally like saying something absurd. That means intentionally mislabeling one of their emotions or desires as a ridiculous question. Like, it seems like you want this project to fail. Have you given up on this project? Like, so these are examples of something where you already know the other party has not just given up and they're not throwing up the white flag. But if you were to ridiculously label this as that, then they immediately come back because they realize that people have loss aversion. They don't want to lose. And so then they go, oh crap, I actually have like the whole project to lose or the project to fail, etc. So you just want to use this to check in with them and kind of bring them back to where you wanted them, to expand on the no and explain to you exactly where in this process what the no is for, what exactly they mean. Another way to do this is to use these 2 trigger words, or you want to trigger these 2 words immediately. They will transform your negotiation. So we're going to kind of go into, if you're using these strategies and your other party is just ridiculous and they're stonewalling you and you can't get past things and they're just like, they'll do what I'm telling you to do to you, where they're like, I'm going to go to the bathroom, I'm going to get something to eat, I'm going to give you the weekend, I'm going to do all this stuff, and you now can control the situation. So what you want to do is you want to ask something that you'll get a reaction or response from the other party, and they'll say, that's right. So before you convince your counterpart to see what you're trying to accomplish, you have to say the things to them that will get them to say that's right. So that's right is better than a yes. Strive for it. Reaching that's right in negotiation creates breakthroughs. So for example, again, if you're mirroring and you're repeating something that they said and you're asking for clarification, so you want this, is that right? And then usually they'll say, that's right. So if you say it first, they'll mirror you back. And then if they don't mirror you back, that's another sign that you have to kind of come back to that no place to get them to say a no. So you kind of have to sometimes go back and forth, mirroring and labeling. So then you would go into a label where, you're back to not understanding, like if it wasn't a that's right, then you go back to labeling. Well, it seems like this, and then you're calling out the emotion. So again, back and forth until you get them to get it out, what they really want. Now when it's your turn to talk, there's a few things that are really helpful for you. Again, if you're in this back and forth process and they're really not getting anywhere, and you kind of need to take a break and use some other tactics to kind of get some more out of the other party. First thing, they're actually swapped. Second thing, but first thing, honestly, is if you can get the other person to go first, most of the time, that's really key. Because going first is not necessarily the best thing when it comes to negotiating price. Again, if you can get the other side to, like if it's a monetary negotiation, get them to say it first, then you can come up with other solutions later. So non-monetary concessions, kind of how to haggle between, oh, this was my price, and you're like way off. And then so you can use things to haggle in between. But if you have to say it first, you may have to use some like really ridiculous anchor and put some ridiculous figure. Again, you have to prepare yourself physically, psychologically, it's supposed to say psychologically, to withstand the offer. So if you say something first and the guy's a pro or a shark, he's going to use an extreme anchor to bend your reality. You want to do that to them. So you don't want to go first on price, because then they would just shut down and say no. So you want them to give a price first. And sometimes you might be surprised that you might get a better price than you even were looking for. But anyway, so and anchoring their emotions, these are key things to try, on the other party. Again, bend your counterpart's reality. You have to start with basics of empathy. Start out with an accusation audit, acknowledging all of the fears. So for example, if someone is accusing you of something, like someone is telling you that you're a liar or you stole or something like that, saying that out loud, again, it's a label, but saying that out loud to, you think that I'm a crook, or you think that, or I'm seeing that you think this, or you try not to use I or you actually. So I am picking up that I am perceived as a thief. And so what you're doing is you kind of look at their emotions and you see like what end of the spectrum to audit their fears, or if there is something you're picking up on their end, and why accusing you of that would scare them is because sometimes you have to talk about a past situation. There's so many examples, but you want to basically do a check-in with an audit, acknowledging their fears. And then again, with monetary negotiations, you want to let them go first. Surprise with a gift. With numbers, this is interesting. I went forward, sorry. Establish a range. So for example, I say this all the time. So for example, I use like the next couple of tactics constantly in any kind of price negotiation, any real estate, in single home, retail sales, in whatever. So establishing a range. For example, if somebody is wanting you, say as an agent, to give them what your commission is going to be, or et cetera. So what I actually do is I say, well, the industry standard is this, and so I fall here. So if you use an industry standard or phrase it as an industry standard, that actually provides a frame of reference for the other person and establishes a range. So then they're more likely to stay within that range versus, having some extreme anchor where they just pick a way bottom price that it makes no sense. So I say that all the time. I will put like a range or a reference, establish a ballpark. So the ballpark, instead of saying I'm worth $110,000, at top places like X Corporation, people at this job are earning between $130,000 and $170,000. They get your point across without moving the party into a defensive position where they're like, that's ridiculous. So again, you're putting it on somebody else, some other standard off you. Pivoting to a non-monetary term, trades of unequal value, is where I'm like super strong, I think. So when it comes to trying to figure out what the other party wants, maybe, they have a lot of, on multifamily, a lot of deferred maintenance on their property, a lot of problems with the tenants, a lot of whatever. And you could offer up, instead of a monetary value, you could offer something else up, where it's like, okay, well, what we'll do is my team will take care of these issues. And so then you no longer have to worry about that problem. And so from there forward, the other party is happy. So it could be things like, they want hard earnest money. And, instead of doing that, you want an early access agreement to let your contractors come in and see. And so I would trade days for us to go look for money or different things like that. So you can trade unequal value. And if you have a skill set, I do that all the time, where I'm like, okay, so you're a good ghostwriter and I can give you leads over here or whatever. There's so many different things. I won't go too far into it. 5, another great thing to turn the conversation, if you can't, is to, when you're talking numbers, use odd ones. This is really weird with the psychology, and I know it sounds weird, but numbers that ends in 0 inevitably feel like a temporary placeholder, guesstimates that you can easily be negotiated out of. Anything you throw out that sounds less round, say 37,263, feels like a figure that you came up with a result of thoughtful calculation. So for me, like I had a property recently that was like 4.4 million, and instead of offering 4.4 million, I offered 4.375, I think is what I did. And I mean, I wouldn't even do the cents because that's petty. But anyway, it just shows the other party that usually they believe that it's like in your due diligence, that there's some calculation that you came up with that exactly spot on what you need to pay for the property. And again, this is just a mind trick. A surprise with a gift. This is so opposite of what everybody else tries to do. You can really get your counterpart into a mood of generosity by staking an extreme anchor. Like, I want to be this much below your price, or they're not below, but I want to be at this price, which is way below. And then after their inevitable first rejection, offering them something unrelated as a surprise gift. You're like, what do I give them as a gift? I mean, like literally in this negotiation, I'm going to have to get into at the end of the month. I'm going to give this other party this book. That's mine. And there's other things that you could ask, or if you want to figure it out, what does it take to be successful here? And they'll tell you what they want. So again, there's non-monetary trades of value. You could say, okay, well, I will do this, or I'll assign you this, or I'll give you that as a gift for us to move forward. The F word, that is something that is warning sign. It's an emotional term. So F word, fair, is what I'm talking about. People usually exploit it to the other side, and then they basically become defensive. If you're saying, this isn't fair or whatever, they're using it as an emotional tactic to gain concessions. When your counterpart drops the F-bomb, don't get suckered into the concession. Instead, ask them to explain how you're mistreating them. This is so funny, because then they think, well, I didn't mean it that way, or, it'll actually make that fair word completely go away. And so instead of it being like an equal fair thing, then unequal trades of value and unequal scales will come back into play. You can bend your counterpart's reality by anchoring his starting point. So again, before offering anything, making an offer, emotionally anchor them by saying how bad it will be. I do this all the time. So for example, if I'm putting forward an offer to a broker, and I know that I'm going to be offering them way below what the seller would ever accept, and I want to preface, that I may ruin their relationship with the seller, I'll say, this is probably going to be the lowest offer you guys are going to get, especially if they're pushing me to give them an offer. That's the other thing, is if your other party is pushing you to give you an offer, you're like, okay, you know, I'm an asshole, but this is what I'm going to do. Or, you know, this is going to be the worst offer you've ever seen, but I'll do this. So if you're anchoring it, they actually never get angry. And sometimes it's actually worked, which is cool. And then sometimes they'll start negotiating from there, which is awesome, because that's what you want, is to be way below. But yeah, setting an extreme anchor to make your offer make your real offer seem reasonable, to use a range seems less aggressive. So again, using anchoring as a starting point is great. All right. After your turn to talk, remember how I mentioned earlier, calibrated open-ended questions. So this is a great way to make your counterpart feel like they're in charge, but they're not. You are the one in charge. So you're going to have to repeat calibrated questions, usually 4 times before saying a no. It's not always, sometimes it's 3. But even with the best techniques and strategy, you need to regulate your emotions if you want any type of coming out on top. So bite your tongue. So a simple rule is, when you're verbally assaulted, disarm your counterpart by asking a calibrated question. So if they freak out and they're like, this is ridiculous, I'm not doing this, da, 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 and you want to like help them to diffuse the situation, the best examples are, what about this is important to you? How can I help this? How can I help make this better for us? How would you like me to proceed? What is it that brought us into this situation? How can we solve this problem? What is the objective? I ask that one all the time. What do we really want here? What are we trying to accomplish here? Exactly. How am I supposed to do that? That's another one that's really uncomfortable, but that works all the freaking time, especially in email. And it's really funny because you'll have someone like, I've negotiated commissions and all kinds of stuff in the past, where they'll give you something super low and you're used to 3 times that amount. And I will literally, in their email or in my response, I'll say, this is what we've done in the past. This is the industry average. And then I appreciate your offer. It's another thing we'll cover in a sec. You appreciate the offer. Your offer was very generous. I appreciate that, but I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. And you see how that was super smooth and it wasn't that crazy. But if you just say, like a one-liner response in an email, how am I supposed to do that? I would not do that. But using open-ended questions, especially how am I supposed to do that? The other party immediately knows that this isn't a no from you, but it basically makes them talk. So they have to, you know, explain everything, or usually they will, not always. Sometimes people are, you know, really good on the other side. Here's another way to say no without a no. Like I mentioned, your offer is very generous. I'm sorry, that just doesn't work for me. Is again an elegant way to say no, or I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I just can't do that. Or again, like I mentioned earlier, depending on where you're at, if you're haggling, you can use we don't do that. So again, you're not saying no because the word no usually freaks out the other party. I want to know from the other party for me to hear to go, oh, that means you get started now. But you know, if you elicit a no or if you say a no, they usually freak out. So you want to say no without saying no. So again, if they're still difficult and you're still not getting anywhere, then you got to haggle, a good old school haggle. This is kind of where we're all familiar with negotiating, and all of us think that this is how it typically works. But here's a little, so again, they're going to force you into having to haggle. So again, you want to detour the conversation to the non-monetary issues first. So let's put the price off to the side for a moment and talk about what would make this a good deal. So if you can kind of start working on things that they need as a concession, maybe it's like an insurance claim, maybe it is, you know, that they want to make sure that you can close. And so, you know, this would work instead, or, you know, they want less days here in due diligence, whatever it is, non-monetary things that you can say that would make it a good deal for them. And then again, if they force you to talk about price, they push you to go first. Instead of naming a price, allude to an incredibly high number that someone else might charge. Again, put it on somebody else. This is freaking genius, and it works because you're creating that frame for them. If they're like, give me a price, just give me a freaking price. What you would say is, why would you ever do business with me? Why would you ever change from your existing supplier? They're great. That's an incidence if you're a rep, for example. And then basically setting, I'm not going to get in that for a second, sorry. So whenever you're talking to your, so again, sorry, putting it on someone else, you're saying, they force you to name your price, tell me your price. And you go, well, you know, I wouldn't charge as much as Joe. He just charged $10 million for this, and that doesn't even make sense. So you're essentially, in their mind, you're placing $10 million as the starting place. It's crazy what it does to your psychology, but it freaking works. So they see that 10 and they go, okay, we're going to be somewhere below that 10, but it could be $9,999,000. You know what I mean? Really, it could be. So again, when you're in this place where they're forcing you to list a price or name a price, and you, again, it's from a competitor, you're going to put a frame of reference. Why would you ever do business with me? Why would you ever charge or change from your pre-existing supplier? They're great. And then the why coaxes your counterpart to work for you. Because again, they have to explain, they have to expand, they have to kind of give up all of their chips, if you will. And so here's a great way when you're going into a negotiation before you ever even sit down with that person, or if you're on a Zoom call or whatever, if you get that in person or even a call, actually. If you can kind of do your research and figure out, again, normative to your environment, to your industry, to your market, to all the things that you're negotiating, or even like if you're in a divorce negotiation, what's normal in a divorce negotiation? I mean, this stuff works for everything. Figuring out how to set your goal or your target. So in this situation, it's a monetary goal, setting your target price. So the strategy here is you set your price, your goal. And I think this is where everyone's pretty familiar with this haggling, but this works really well. So first you set your first offer at 65% of your target price. So you calculate 3 raising increments, 85, 95, 100%. Then use lots of empathy and different ways of saying no to get the other side to counter before you increase your offer. So when calculating the final amount, use precise non-round numbers, like we mentioned earlier, no zeros, $37,893 rather than $38,000. It gives the number credibility and weight. And then on your final number, throw in a non-monetary item that they probably don't want, just to show you're at your limit. So I know that sounds stupid, but it actually works. And I'll even throw in the chiller, and it's not something they even want, but then that's, again, like, especially how I just said it, that's the way for them to go, oh, that's their ceiling. Okay. But anyway, like I mentioned earlier, so you're setting your target price of 100%, and then basically your raises of increasing value, or if you're on the opposite end, starting 65. Yeah. So you're starting at 65% of your target price, and then you'll go to 85%, 95%, 100%. So knowing what the market will bear, what the industry will do, what's normal, what's expected, and then going from there, this really works. Now, in commercial real estate and apartments where it's been very competitive, this doesn't really work, unfortunately, right now. Now, as we get into a more of a buyer's market and things switch a little bit, this is going to be a great way, like even kind of COVID prices right now, where you could make an offer, and if you're like the only buyer, but when you're going up against multiple people, this doesn't really work, because basically you're not going to beat other people's offers. So, but this is really great when it's you and one other person. The haggle, and you're still not getting any movement. You're like, damn, they still, sorry for the words, but they still won't budge. They still won't give me anything back, any feedback, what they really want. Then you need to find the black swan. This is the last thing. And so this is something great from Chris Voss, if you ever read Never Split the Difference. So what you want to do is you want to be aware at any given moment that you want your other side at any given moment to feel like they could lose the negotiation and it could collapse. So to get leverage, you want to persuade your counterpart that they have something real to lose if this falls through. So for example, if you were doing a deal with somebody, maybe you're negotiating with your future partner on something, and maybe they put in a lot of earnest money, or maybe their reputation is on the line, or maybe, whatever it is, that's something that you would bring up, again, as the black swan to persuade your counterpart that they have something real to lose in this deal. Now you can use positive leverage and normative leverage to do this. So positive leverage is quite simply your ability as a negotiator to provide or withhold things that your counterpart wants. When they say that, you have power. Or normative leverage, again, is using the other party's norms and standards to advance your position. If you can show inconsistencies between their beliefs and their actions, you have normative leverage, because it kind of makes the other person think, oh, okay, so I'm acting this way, but my actual standards are this, and so that makes them change their position. Usually makes them back down. But again, if they feel like they have something real to lose if this deal falls through, then they will concede. So finding that black swan is super key. Execution. So this is like the final thing. when you finally get the other party to start agreeing with you and moving forward, and you guys have negotiated basically what you're going to end up with, this is something that is super important. You have to get confirmation to guarantee that they will hold up their side of the deal. And some people that are jerks still maybe won't, but this usually, like I'd say 99% of the time, it works. So there are 2 key questions that you want to ask to push your counterparts to think they are defining success in their way. Again, make them think it's their idea. How will we know that we're on track is one question. So then they're going to out loud define exactly what that looks like. And if there's inconsistencies, then again, you have to have another conversation. The second question is, how will we address things if we're off track? So again, they will answer, and then you will summarize their answers until you get it, that's right. And that's when you know that they have bought in. So basically, you're getting them to verbally out loud repeat what you guys have come down to, and then get them to say, like, you'll repeat, so I see this and this and this, is that right? And then they'll say that's right. And then until you get that that's right, if they say I'll try, for example, that means I plan to fail. It does every time. And when you hear either of the above, you got to dive back in with those calibrated how questions. Again, you never want to ask, you want to always ask how or why questions until they define the terms of a successful implementation in their own voice. So they out loud will tell you what a successful implementation works, and you keep asking how or why, but more how, to get them to continue trying, which is funny because you're basically giving them again another soft no and telling them this isn't good or doesn't work for you without saying anything negative. You're not saying no, absolutely not, this doesn't work for me. You know, you're just saying how, and they explain. Anyway, so once they summarize, you'll get a that's right. And then the rule of 3 is simply getting to the other guy to agree to the same thing 3 times in a conversation. It may not always take 3 times. Maybe they're so excited about the solution that they didn't think of that they're, you can just tell that they're emotionally in, but usually having them say it throughout the negotiation 3 different times will guarantee that you have execution of whatever the agreement has been. Now, I'm not going to go through this. I'm going to leave this here. So if you want this for extra credit later on and come back, this is a great way to negotiate a better salary in a job. And again, this is something specifically that applies to women because we don't ask, but this is basically a ways to negotiate salary with your superior. So I'll leave this in here. If y'all want the presentation, it will still be in here. And that is the end of my presentation today on how to successfully negotiate in real estate. Who is interested in being qualified for our next multifamily investment? If you want to drop your name in the chat or answer this quick poll, then you can be qualified for our next multifamily investment. And I will get a list of everybody who clicked on this clicked on this, and I'll be able to follow up with you after we're done. So I'll give you all another couple of seconds. And I think I have one more slide that I wanted to mention before we go into Real Estate IQ's explanation of all the awesome services that they have and how they can help you get started today. So, oh, actually, it's out. It's not in there.
It's
just kidding.
It's later.
Oh, okay, it's later. So I guess that'll pop up later. But for now, I'll stop sharing. And then what you'll see is basically that there in July, at the end of July, there is I think it's called Apartment Investing Summit that myself and a whole bunch of other individuals will be involved with. And it's just the link to get a discount to get in. I'm sad that this is the last out of our 7 weeks here with Real Estate IQ. They have been so supportive of me and us. But if you're interested in continuing to learn about apartment investing, especially if you want to be active as a sponsor, at that event we'll actually have a Shark Tank where people that have deals can get in front of the sponsors that are sponsoring the event and present their deal and either partner or we can buy it from them or we can partner on money or whatever. So I'll let Becky go ahead.
All right, thank you, Kaylee. That's really great information. I actually am not quite yet done, but almost, with the Never Split the Difference book on my Audible account. And so it's great. It's a great summary and a great review of a lot of those really good terms. So thank you for that. All right, this event's brought to you by Real Estate IQ. We have over 45,000 leads every month. And so our guarantee, you can always find a deal with Real Estate IQ. So the first thing I want to do is show you our community. And so if you go to our website, which is realestateiq.co, and click here on community and go to groups, we have a lot of different groups. This is going to be kind of a social media site for investors, kind of a Facebook for investors. And so we have all these groups where you can connect with people. And Kaylee has a group. I just typed in apartment. Here it is, apartment real estate investors. And so this is where you'll be able to go after we're done and get a video of this deal, of Kaylee's presentation today. And it's also a place where you can go and ask questions and meet other apartment investors and all that good stuff. So also here, our marketplace is a place where you can connect with vendors that you might need for your business. Education, if you're looking for a mentor, funding. Vendors here is like title companies, contractors, whatever other kind of things you might need for your business. And also if you're interested in passive investing in notes, you can find vendors there who can help you out. You can go to events and see our upcoming webinars and events. Tools is where you can find our products. And I want to highlight ROI Muse right now. This is a really good deal analysis calculator for investors. And ROI Muse is a company that we partnered with to bring this to you. And so there's residential deal analysis for single family and multifamily, commercial deal analysis. So all that good stuff. So make sure you check that out. So our deal analysis suite lets you run comps. This is for single family predominantly, but also you can comp a vacant lot, for example, or a small multifamily property. We have all of these off-market leads. And so these are distressed and motivated sellers that might have a reason to sell you their property. And we also have commercial leads for a bunch of these, which is anything owned by a commercial entity. So all kinds of motivated sellers. Our premium list, the ones that have the little stars by them, come with skip tracing already done. So it'll have email addresses and phone numbers for the owners so you can contact them. Our county data finder lets you search the tax records for whatever kind of property you're looking for. So if you're looking for a commercial, single family, multifamily, mobile homes, any of those, you can search for absentee owners. You can search all the small multifamily properties in a certain neighborhood, for example, if you want to start with a small one, whatever you're looking for. So you can create a really targeted list to market to. So our deal finding suite includes the off-market leads, the county data finder, and also our MLS deal finder, which is going to catch discounted properties that meet your criteria. You can set it up so when a new property comes on the market or has a price change, you get an email about it right away and get notified. So a lot of ways to help you find and analyze. Here's that ROI Muse to analyze your deals. So we have a good customer service team that's always ready to help you out. We have tutorial videos, all that good stuff, so that once you get started, we make sure you can be successful. All right, we also have some freebies. These are some heat maps that kind of tell you where the deals are, depending on what kind of deal you're looking for. But we also have our deal of the day, which is a live single family deal off the MLS that's at a discount, and we analyze it with our system and blast it out. So you could make an offer on it, or you could, it's also a good educational tool just to kind of know what's on the market, what's available, as well as some things you want to think about to analyze it. And here is Kaylee's contact information. Thank you, Kaylee.
Yeah,
This
was awesome.
I learned a lot just from me sitting in on these over the time. So those of you, if you did miss some of those, do go to the community, join Kaylee's group, check out the past presentations, because she's got some really good information for you.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that maybe I didn't cover too. So y'all just reach out, no problem.
All right. And we'll look forward to seeing you at that summit.
Thank you, Becky.
All All right. Have a great day, everyone.
For webinar schedules, follow us at our official social media accounts or visit us at www.realestateIQ.co.